Netanyahu is kind of assailed from all sides. The broader Israeli public, polls suggest, do want some kind of a resolution to this war in the south with Hamas, a sense that a deal to release the hostages for the cessation of hostilities is majority popular. That said, within his own right-wing coalition, it's extremely unpopular. And he has figures both within his Likud party and the parties to his right that are furious, want nothing to do with any kind of a deal, are demanding an all-out war in the north right now.
Now, Israel's Air Force says it has hit Hezbollah targets in Lebanon this morning in response to yesterday's rocket attack in the occupied Golan Heights, which killed 12 children and young adults who were playing football yesterday. An Israeli airstrike on a school complex in Gaza killed at least 30 Palestinians, including children, according to the health ministry, which, of course, we've got to be cautious about those statistics because it's run by Hamas. Let's cross to Jerusalem and speak to the Israeli political analyst, Arieh Kovler. Arieh, thank you for joining us this morning. A lot has happened in the last 24 hours. I know Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister, has cut short his trip as well. He says this is the worst thing I've read. He says the worst thing that has happened to Israel, this attack in the Golan Heights since the horrendous Hamas terrorist attacks on the 7th of October. Are we closer, do you think, to a regional conflict?
Well, I mean, there's been a regional conflict ongoing now.
Yeah, but I should have phrased that better. I suppose an all-out regional conflict, a proper sort of all-out regional war, I suppose. Apologies, I didn't phrase that very well.
No, it's understandable. And I wanted to start with that because it's important context. Hezbollah has been firing rockets into Israel since October the 7th or October the 8th. Some 5,000 projectiles in the north of the country has been largely evacuated. Entire ghost towns still being shelled regularly and houses destroyed. Israel has also been attacking Hezbollah almost daily in this period, killing hundreds of Hezbollah operatives. And both sides have managed, despite that, to keep things fairly contained. Hezbollah has rockets that can reach Tel Aviv or even further south into Israel. Israel obviously has the capability to cause immense destruction to Lebanon. And both sides have not done that. They've kind of 9 months of a kind of low intensity ongoing war. And the reason for that is neither side wanted this escalation. But the nature of this sheer number of ordinances, it only takes one errant bomb, one mistake to potentially cause an escalation. And that may be what we have seen now. We're seeing many in Israel saying we can't continue to live with this. We need to do something to ensure that Hezbollah cannot continue to pose the level of threat it does to civilians inside Israel. And so that is the big worry right now. Yes.
We heard a detailed explanation a little bit earlier in the programme of what happened in Gaza, that attack, many children and at least 30 Palestinians, according to Hamas figures, of course, that they say were killed in that. Can you just take us through what happened yesterday in the Golan Heights? Of course, that's occupied by Israel. The 12 children and young adults who were playing football. This was a football field and horrendous scenes there. Just tell us what happened.
Yes, so it seems like Hezbollah was engaged in a rocket barrage into the Golan Heights. And one rocket, which it was as a 50-kilo warhead, landed in this football field, killing 12 people. 11 names have been released. All of them are 16 or younger, with many only 10 or 11 years old. And there are obviously still also a number of children in hospital. It seems like the rocket alarm did go off in Majid al-Shams, but it's so close to the border with Hezbollah that the kids did not have time to react to it before the rocket landed and killed them. And the town in Majid al-Shams is a town where the residents are the Druze religion, which is a kind of minority religion in the Middle East related to Islam. They are not Israeli citizens because they have this thought that maybe one day they will end up going back if the land is ever handed back to Syria. But they do receive Israeli services and a kind of part of the Israeli residents, and the country has kind of taken them to heart as if they were from us.
Benjamin Netanyahu has had a busy week. He spoke to Kamala Harris, he spoke to Donald Trump, he spoke to President Biden. He addressed Congress, a long address, nearly an hour of what he was saying there. He's come back to Israel now because of what has happened. What is your assessment of his position? Because although there were inevitably anti-Netanyahu, anti-Israeli protesters in Washington, they seem to follow him wherever he goes, there was nonetheless it appears to me that he perhaps had a warmer welcome in Washington than he might be having at home at the moment, especially when there is thoughts, negotiation in regard to a deal. What's your assessment of that? How close we might be in his own political position?
Netanyahu is a kind of assailed from all sides. The broader Israeli public, polls suggest, do want some kind of a resolution to this war in the south with Hamas, a sense that a deal to release the hostages for the cessation of hostilities is majority popular. That said, within his own right-wing coalition, it's extremely unpopular. And, you know, he has figures both within his Likud party and the parties to his right that are furious, want nothing to do with any kind of a deal, are demanding an all-out war in the north right now. And we have the spectacle of government ministers going or doing the morning shows in Israel, while I'm doing this one here, demanding government action. And Yair Lapid, the leader of the opposition, was saying, hey, you guys are the government. It's not your job to go on the TV and demand the government acts. If you want to act, act. And so there's a very bizarre situation where Netanyahu is the kind of focus of anger from both the right and the left, while he is trying to kind of wend a path that the path of least resistance, for want of a better way of putting it, the path that keeps him in office and balances the forces to his left and to his right.
Just finally, if Hezbollah, they deny this attack in the Golan Heights. The Israelis are having none of it. They have launched retaliation. They have attacked in a way that perhaps they haven't so far in the last number of months. I just wonder what you think happens next.
Look, Hezbollah has denied the attack, but they did acknowledge it first. The Hezbollah-owned media posted a statement claiming responsibility. Then they deleted it once they saw what had happened. So, you know, we should take that denial with a heavy handful of salt. The Israeli attacks last night were clearly not the response, or only the very beginning of the response. We haven't seen anything that is fundamentally changing the balance of power here.
You don't think it's particularly different?
Nothing particularly different yet. But I think we will see that. Israel is trying, by all accounts, to kind of thread a difficult needle here. They need a response that is substantial, that's meaningful, but that doesn't provoke Hezbollah into an all-out war. A response that they can sell at home that was meaningful and that maybe acts as a deterrent, but that doesn't lead to the kind of escalation that sees Israelis back in all over the country, in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, back in their bomb shelters, and that sees Beirut under attack. So we're going to have to see in the next couple of days how that response is calibrated and how Hezbollah chooses to respond in turn.
Arieh Kovler, fascinating talking to you, Israeli political analyst there. Thank you for joining us on Times Radio Breakfast.